I didn't believe this when I first read it, but it's true. In 2025, Mojang didn't add a single block to the game, meaning it's been more than 420 days without one. Everyone was so busy talking about ice that we didn't manage to get ice bricks in Minecraft, and so now that every drop is coming with an add-on for Bedrock, which Mojang promotes as a way to experience it better, we have to ask the question, is Mojang actually releasing as much as they can, or are they holding out on us? I want to talk about these three key things today, because hello, I'm AbbyXToyCat, and welcome back to another Minecraft update news video. You can subscribe to see more, but let's start talking about the blocks. Because if you think that no full block added since 2024 is a bad claim by itself, well, it's actually not just blocks. There were no biomes added last year, and there hasn't been a single structure added to the game since 1.21, which was now 25 Minecraft versions ago, technically speaking. But I think of the three of those claims, the no blocks one is the most surprising, because Minecraft is both a game about using blocks, and they seem like the easiest of the three to add. Although, the most obvious thing that Minecraft always needs, that pleases the community the most, is a brand new type of wood, and most new types of wood would probably require a brand new biome, and therefore, almost an entire drop dedicated just to getting us some light blue planks, or some dark brown planks. Oh, we already have those colors? Okay. Well, I do think there are a lot of colors missing, notably green, and I do think they still could have added these planks by saying, what if those azalea trees actually had their own wood? Or even by just saying, okay, what if we didn't do wood at all? What if we took some of the more in-depth parts of Minecraft and decided to give blocks there? For example, ice is now made of 3 variants. What if there were ice bricks? What if amethyst had more variants? What if there were more fun things you could do with all of the different minerals in the ground? Calcite and diorite and granite don't seem to have any real link there. What could they do about this? Well, this is my argument as to why it's crazy that we didn't get any new blocks in 2025, but to give Mojang some credit, last year was not the year of the block, and if you were to label it as anything, you'd say it was year of the mob. We didn't get any brand new blocks that were full. We got a lot of partial blocks like the shelf, copper decorational blocks, etc., the new lightning rods, and even the firefly bush, but ultimately last year wasn't about adding blocks to the game, it was about adding more mobs, mostly for decoration. We've got, after all, if you look at the full year, you can see that we've got the copper golem, happy ghast, nautilus, camel cusk, hammer, zombie horse, parched and zombie nautilus, as well as all of the mob variants too, a whole bunch of guys that you can now have in your Minecraft world. I think this is great, and I also think that ultimately this is what the year was about. They went for a very different vibe to how an update usually works, deprioritizing blocks and biomes and massively prioritizing not just mobs, because they could do other things, but mobs as well as multiplayer. We saw the locator bar and all of those improvements, and vibrant visuals, as well as some of the best music discs that I think exist so far. It was a decent year. It even added a whole new weapon and the closest thing we've ever seen to vertical slabs, but this is what makes it the weird and quite controversial year. They moved from one update a year to having 4 drops, and interestingly, that means no blocks. Is that something they will fix this year by adding way fewer mobs? I mean, it doesn't look like it so far necessarily, but will they add way fewer mobs and instead start focusing on filling out the gaps in the blocks that exist, i.e. things like calcite stairs and slabs, things like concrete stairs and slabs, things like, to give a really easy example here, more types of wood or ice bricks or amethyst bricks? I don't actually know, but I can be hopeful. Well, I mean, I can try at least. And that is why I would say that no blocks is a real bummer, but by itself it's not the worst thing in the world, except maybe it is the worst thing because are Mojang drip feeding us? Well, I think that this is something that is often described for many games. I believe the first place I ever saw this was for Grand Theft Auto, the idea being that instead of having one update every 6 or 12 months, you instead make a bunch of content and slowly release it piece by piece so that every week there's something exciting. I guess Fortnite is another famous example of this. This is a criticism laid at Minecraft that basically says that they are now updating the game 4 times as much, so they feel less of a desire to add major features to the game, and that's why we got no blocks, because they just didn't feel like they needed to add them. Every single one of these drops had its own type of hype, and so why add anything more? That would kind of hold up until we go back to the add-on argument, because every single time Minecraft has released a drop, they've released some form of marketplace map, but as of the Mounts of Mayhem, they actually switched this over to making an add-on. It makes sense, add-ons have been very popular, and they've actually been around for just about as long as the drop system itself. Another, if you want to go conspiracy theory, wow, it's weird that as soon as Mojang added a way to buy content for the game, the amount of content they added got less. But when they released the Mounts of Mayhem add-on, they said, yeah, there's hundreds of new blocks to play around with and all of these different things. But that's kind of weird if you ask me, because why would they need to add hundreds of blocks via an add-on if the drop already has all the content it needs? It almost starts to feel like, yeah, look, the drops are here so that people can start to work on top of them, and this is one of the big complaints that people say about drip feeding. However, I would say that personally, I think that drip feeding would probably be more impressive than what's actually happening, since if Mojang were drip feeding us, that is to say, they made a bunch of stuff in advance and now they can just release it very slowly, then that means that they could be working on a big update in the meantime. I kind of wish that we found out, like, oh yeah, everything that released this year, they finished working on in like February last year, and they've been working on an end update or a fourth dimension ever since. But actually, I don't think that that is true. It's hard to say for sure, of course, because the only sign we have that a feature is in development now is that it releases in snapshots or preview. We get very few little glances from a Minecraft Live here or a TikTok teaser there about what they're working on next, and I think that this is a real shame, because not talking about stuff until it's ready to test is something that makes sense on some level, but why is it then that combat, minecarts, and villager trade changes have been sitting on the side for so long? I think that by not announcing or telling us anything about features, we kind of get this excuse to not work on them for a while, and maybe I'm wrong, and the mega, 2.0 style update is going to be coming out. That's what I would tell myself, at least. But now we've got the 26.0 update, and so is there going to be a mega drop with new combat and a new structure and something else? I think that's not necessarily likely, and that's why I kind of wish that the answer to this chapter of the video was, yeah, Mojang are drip feeding us and something awesome is coming, but given how much they try to shoot that down, is it actually that every single week Mojang shows up to work and they work out what is best for that week, what is most memeable or whatever else? That's why we got Baby Chicks, is because they make great social media posts. It almost feels like that, doesn't it? Anyway, I think that this is now the fun part of the video where we move into part 3. How would I manage drops? If I were CEO of Mojang, as someone who's followed the game as a fan, an outsider who loves to follow the news for years, how would I manage it? Well, personally, I think that 4 times a year and 1 times a year are 2 extreme ends of the system of how many times you could release an update. I think that if we're looking at people's dissatisfaction with what's happening now, the easy solution would be to look at the golden days for Java and console. The golden days for Bedrock are a lot trickier to understand, but the golden days for Java and console both had 2 to 3 updates a year of varying size. Bedrock currently has 8 updates a year, and that might be better in some world, but actually no, it's terrible, because half of them feel like they're not even guaranteed to include good changes. They're ones you have to worry about. Like the 121.120 update was an update that just wrecked the game for 3 weeks, and they didn't fix it in that time. There is a real fear that comes when you update the game too much, because you want updates to be fun and exciting, not regular and sometimes terrifying. And so I think that if you were to ask my real idea, I would say make sure that you just have people continuously working on what it is they love. So Olraf, for example, designed the mace and is currently working on combat, at least the last we heard, and so maybe he was behind the spear. That's awesome. Whenever he has a fun idea, ask him to throw it into whichever of the 3 updates is being worked on. Or if King B Dogs is working on the Aether, then design the Ancient City and the Warden, let him plug away at the next big boss or whatever it is he's interested in. Jeb used to love making structures. To be fair, someone else probably does it now, but why not have all of the different systems of Minecraft work independently and then be ready to add when they complement other features? The trial chambers already felt disjointed when they were trying to work perfectly together, so why not just say, look, if, whoever you are, if you enjoy working on the idea of new trees, build us a bunch of cool new biomes, and when one perfectly fits into a drop, we'll make it go in there. The current fight that I see is happening, either within Mojang or within the community, is this big debate about whether Minecraft should be filled with more content, more fun things, more great things worked on by developers, or whether they should go through and refine existing things. This is something you can see from the external side of the studio. 1.113, 1.14, 1.16 and 1.18 all worked on massively refining existing game mechanics, while we saw 1.19 and 1.21 kind of add brand new ones. Even within the drops, you can see that the Garden Awakens added brand new features, and then every one of the drops since has basically worked on refining existing places with the exception being like the spear and the shelf. But we've seen way more refinement than actually finding new things entirely, and I think that this can be described very broadly in the idea of explore and exploit, right? The two simple things that every living being ultimately does at some point. And so if we think about this through a explore-exploit lens, obviously Minecraft, being the most successful game of all time, has been very focused on the exploit level. That isn't to say they're exploiting us as players, but they've worked out something that's successful and they're just going at it continuously. If they change Minecraft too much, they might risk it being so changed that people don't like it. This happened in 1.9. They figured they would upend the entire combat system in an update that took the longest of any Java update ever, even into this day, by the way, unless you exclude drops as being updates. But the longest update time they spent ever alienated some of the community because people went, yeah, this is like different, but different in a way I don't like. And so can Minecraft risk the biggest brand in the world? Can they risk all of the things that come with it, the movies, the theme park, etc., to go for bold new ideas? I think the fear is no, but I also think that actually, nah, I think it's worth going for it. And the way I would say that we go for exploring, the way I think that we go for adding new things that can become iconic for the future, because, if they were really focused on Minecraft's core mechanic since the game first came out, we'd have never seen the Wither and beacons. We'd have never seen witches added to the game. We'd have never seen the giant refinement to the Nether that took it from being the friendly, lovable dimension, but let's be honest, it's kind of shit. It actually took it from being that dimension into one that's an absolute hit. And so I think that the equivalent that they could do nowadays is probably something like take a bunch of different major ideas for the game, say working on structures, work on 3 giant structure ideas or biome ideas, or just massive refinements to some area of the game. Some people argue mountains are underdeveloped. Some people would argue, like it's caves that's underdeveloped. Some people would argue it's the end that's underdeveloped. Whatever it needs to be, focus on entirely different parts of the game, and then put them all out to test, maybe at the same time, see which ones people gravitate towards more, and then I would say, if I'm in charge of the game, I would accept that this will cause controversy, but hopefully the sort of controversy that's good for business. I would then say, okay, out of these ideas, pick one to go away forever. We have made 3 what we think are good ideas, but one of them obviously isn't going to be as good as the other 2. I know that the mob vote has caused a bunch of controversy, and mostly amongst people who think that it works exactly like my idea I've just described, but a lot of Minecraft features do feel like they are wrong in some way, and so giving the community a chance to vote one away, maybe that is a fun little idea. But yeah, that's maybe why I am not in charge of Mojang, but that is what I would do. I think that now is the time to think about, like, okay, should we be adding vertical slabs? We've heard good things from Jeb about that, but is now the time for this? Is now the time to be adding concrete stairs and slabs? Is now the time to be doing much bigger things like new biomes with new woods, like new structures entirely? And I hope that someone in Mojang is having that thought, and I hope that 2026 is off to a slow start, but is going to go much faster, or indeed much bigger and bolder. But only time will tell, and I'll have to let you know when we know as well. Thank you for watching. If you did enjoy this video, I would actually encourage you to follow my Instagram at ToyCatShorts. We need a minimum number of followers, not just to monetize, but to literally have brand protection status on Instagram for whatever reason. And so if you could follow, that would be good. You don't have to watch anything, although if you feel like liking stuff there, it's great. And if you want to like this video, why not do it too? And if I'm asking so much anyway, why not subscribe so you see more of these videos every single day? This is, of course, one from Advanced, so there's a tiny chance that by the time you watch this, I'm horrifically wrong. But if I'm not, well, that proves something, doesn't it?